Dvorak, award-winning national security, border security investigative reporter for TV, radio, and print media. She is the senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy, TV correspondent CW6 News San Diego, One American News Network, and the website, the KD Report. Most importantly, though, she is streaming live right now, Periscope.com, Facebook, and she'll be on YouTube with all of his updates and everything else. And Kimberly, how are you?
I'm fine. Happy New Year, Chuck.
All right. Hey, listen, I'm going to spill the beans. I know that you got high over the weekend.
What?
Weren't you in an air balloon?
Oh, yes. Well, no, that was on New Year's Eve. Yeah. Okay. That was a week ago. Oh my gosh. I'm like saying, what's going on? Knocked out the decade with my kids. We took a balloon ride over Southern California, San Diego, along the coastline. And it was an amazing way to end the year and to see what everything looks like when you're up about 3,700 feet, looking down on all people going about their business and watching the sunset. It was an absolutely amazing experience. Highly recommend it to anyone. looking
down on the little people.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, there's nothing happening, is there? I mean,
no.
What's Trump done now?
Yeah.
And by the way, I could say, what's Trump done that Obama didn't do and a few other presidents? But boy, the hypocrisy sure goes crazy.
Oh yeah.
When this happens.
My
goodness.
Well, I mean, in the hypocrisy here, I think where we need to start with is President Obama actually started a war in Libya. He actually sponsored and was an advocate for Terror Tuesdays in the White House. So if your name was on that list and it was a Tuesday, then President Obama was ahead and putting your name out to be assassinated. I did not see Nancy Pelosi coming forward. I did not see Adam Schiff, Chuck Schumer. I did not see any of those people when the president was there from their Democratic Party. There was no problem. He knew what he was doing. So this is something that's just so completely disingenuous that's laughable.
Yeah, Huckabee had an interesting thing about you can't notify him too early because, a lying Adam Schiff, might figure out a way to do a broadcast over there and warn him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's probably a little over and above. But the thing is, the Democrats have, especially in the House, they've been really, rough on the president no matter what he does. And, they have tried to undercut his foreign policy and tried to undercut his domestic policy. So what would make anyone believe that we need to give out the GPS coordinates of where Soleimani would be? There's a lot to discuss whether this was a smart move by the administration or not a smart move by the administration. But certainly the lawmakers, especially Nancy Pelosi, they know what this is all about. And they know they're not going to get the details of exactly, what that information was that led the president to make that decision ultimately. They're going to have to wait for, behind closed door meetings with the White House to get that information. No president would ever do something like that and release information and give it over to the House.
In your latest report, you point out the fact that, how far this guy's terrorist activities really stretched, and all the stuff that he was supporting. And it actually even comes all the way up to the United States borders, doesn't it? Yeah,
well, and there's also a lot of information, though it's never been completely proven, that Soleimani was behind the assassination of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia diplomat here in Washington, D.C. So, his reach reached into this country. There are a number of Hezbollah terror cells south of our border. It's why DHS actually put up a new alert and, rose the alert level for this country because we know that Hezbollah operates south of the border. And I just think that, he's definitely a bad guy. And there's no doubt about it that he had American blood on his hands. So I just think that, we can all debate whether this was the right thing to do or not. But, he was on the terrorist watch list. And as you and I know, there's only one way to get off that terrorist watch list. And that's exactly what happened to Soleimani.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more from Kimberly Dvorak, D-V-O-R-A-K. Put it in Facebook, Periscope.com, and you'll be able to watch her streaming live, Periscope.com, Facebook.com, and her website, theadreport.com. She is the Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. You know, I was looking here, and I know that Soleimani directly responsible for arming, funding, training Iranian proxy groups or militias, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Afghanistan, elsewhere, which led to the deaths and injuries of tens of thousands of people. And the question would be, probably Iran is going to retaliate, you say in your report, just to save face. But I guess the big question on Americans' minds would be, how much would they retaliate?
Yeah, I think that, right now with the sanctions that the Trump administration has leveled against Iran, their economy is in shambles. They're facing internal strife. There's widespread, there's a lot of different people inside Iran. Nobody really is going to miss Soleimani. So you're not going to, you're not going to see the rally around the flag moment, and that's usually what happens when a country is attacked. Everybody all comes together and they push forward, and the protesters would all come to the flag and agree with the Ayatollah Khomeini. That's simply not going to happen, and we've actually seen widespread protesting, which the mainstream media has not put on. I have not seen on any TV news shows that the protesters are actually cheering that Soleimani is dead, because he's responsible for killing thousands of people, and probably behind a lot of the protesters in the recent weeks, up to 1,500 of them were killed. So there's no love lost there. The economy's in shambles. They don't have much left of an economy, and you've got worldwide pressure on them. You're not going to see a big response. They are, however, going to try to save face. So this is where they will go to their militias outside the country and start targeting American as well as Israeli interest in the region, and presumably in Africa, where there was a terrorist attack on a U.S. military base down in Kenya overnight. So that killed 3 Americans. So we're likely to see more attacks like that, and not necessarily a big, full-blown attack. They're not suicidal. And, Iranians are obviously a civilization that's been around for an awful long time, and they're educated people, and they're Nobel Prize winning people. So for us to just dismiss them would be, very, very, something that we should not underestimate what they can do. However, it's not going to be anything big, because the United States can and would go in at that point and, really wreak some havoc and drop a lot of bombs on their, oil refineries and things that they are currently making money at. Those industries would probably be wiped out.
Let me ask you a couple of things here. Okay, the protesting, I know that if you watch it on like CNN, they don't mention, that they sort of make it look like they're protesting the fact that the United States killed Soleimani.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is, how much do you think that this had to do with the way Trump felt about what happened to the United States Navy sailors, where Obama didn't do anything, drawing them a red line in the sand, so to speak?
Yeah. I think for Trump, we don't know, where the intel came from. We don't know if the CIA provided the intel, if, the FBI got a hold of some intel, or if the Israelis, our buddies over in the Middle East, gave us the intel on this and presented it to the president, that Soleimani was going to be, in charge of another attack, and they were going to attack U.S. interests. Well, no surprise. I mean, we saw the protests at the U.S. Embassy inside Iraq, and we saw Soleimani actually at that attack of the U.S. Embassy. That's what put him in the hot seat. as to whether, the president, acted this time, I think that he's been waiting. They shot down a U.S. drone. They've attacked multiple U.S. interests in the region, and Trump's response has been very measured. And I think when he saw what happened at the embassy, that's probably what pushed him over that red line. And he did not want to be Barack Obama, who actually made a red line. They crossed the red line in Syria, and he didn't do anything. And as a result, we saw Navy sailors under Obama that their ship was captured, and they were pictures across the internet and across the world of Navy sailors on their knees at gunpoint by Iranian soldiers. So, the president was very cognizant, I'm certain, of the Benghazi implications and things of that nature. He saw the opportunity. They had the opportunity. There is nothing illegal about what happened there, because, again, Soleimani was on the terrorist. He was a designated terrorist, taken out anytime, anywhere. Mike Pompeo, the Department of State, he said that the administration simply took down Soleimani on the battlefield. That could be questionable. I was at the airport, but I mean, there's a lot of law on the side of the president in this situation. Again, whether this was a smart move or not, that remains to be seen, and whether this is just a one-off. But it looks like a lot of people surrounding the president, at least, despite what the president would like to do, which is leave the region, are pushing the president to become more involved in the region. And, in the coming weeks, we'll see if they're successful, or if President Trump's policy of going in and doing a one-off and getting rid of Soleimani is going to work in his benefit, because this could be something that, hey, the next person that steps out of line, do you want to be the next Soleimani? Because I'm going to come after you. And because of his unpredictability, the enemies don't necessarily know what, what's coming their way. I'm certain that Soleimani did not think that he was going to ever be the target of a U.S. Reaper drone.
Well, and one reason may be, because Obama, all right, he had this executive order of 13224.
Yep.
He designated Soleimani specially designated global terrorist.
Yep.
Then Obama signed 13572, citing the General for Human Rights Abuses in 2011.
Yep.
But see, maybe he was a paper war.
Yeah.
Whereas, Trump is a guy that says, hey, I'm really going to take action here.
Yeah.
Do you know, I've heard, I don't know if it's in your report here, I'm not sure, but Soleimani, was he planning an attack, they said, and this is another reason they took him out?
Well, this is
word of it.
Yeah, this is where the fog of war situation comes into play. Know what the actual intelligence was, and I have a feeling we're not really going to learn what the intelligence was. And despite all the cries from Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi that they demand the president declassify this finding, because the president had to make a finding for the CIA to send a drone up and target someone who's the equivalent of a like Secretary of Defense. I mean, he was like the main guy in Iran, and he'd been there for his entire life. We've known about him. He's got a lot of American blood. He's got a lot of regional blood on his hands. And so the thought that the president would not do something like this, I think stunned everybody. I will say this: at the Pentagon, they were caught a bit flat-footed over the weekend on this. And, so you see the president's inner circle, I think at this point, shrinking, because there were a number of people over at Defense that had no idea, did not recommend this whatsoever, yet the president went out and did this anyways. But again, the president's looking at this through a prism that, he's given Iran, pass after pass after pass after all of these acts, the past year, they've really been pretty, aggressive towards America. And this was a chance. And I don't think the president understood that there was going to be a lot of people that were saying this is going to draw us into war. But I'm inclined to say this is not going to drive us into war with Iran, simply because their economy is so weak. They don't have money, and they're undergoing right now a massive protest to get rid of the Ayatollah Khomeini. So with those scenarios in play, I think that's fairly safe that we will not go to war with Iran directly. However, we will probably be boosting our troops because we're going to have to, harden our, embassies, and all of our military bases are going to be hardened. And that's going to come at a cost to taxpayers. So in this case, I look at, the killing of Soleimani, and the Iranians are going to do simply what Osama bin Laden wanted, and that is to make America afraid, and that's for America to spend so much money that they bankrupt themselves. So there will be hardening of all of our installations overseas, and that will come at a cost to the taxpayers. So that is maybe an unintended consequence, but it's a consequence all the same.
When you talk about defense people not recommending a site, doing the action the president took.
Mm-hmm.
Other than Bolton, would you say that most of these defense people, know what they're talking about, or are they still part of the swamp?
Well, I think the majority of people are still part of the swamp. So it wouldn't matter if we would have seen the embassy be overrun in Iraq, then Trump would have been obliterated by, senior policy people saying he should have went in and took out this guy. He should have done this. He should have done that. So, I think that, just because it's President Trump, if this was President Bush, I think the entire country would have really rallied around. There is just such hatred by the left at the president and the never Trumpers that this president can't do anything wrong. And again, I get back to, if this is a one-off and this was kind of a payback, which the president indicated after they shot down our drone that he was going to reserve the right to go after the Iranians here, and then this was a move that he can recover from. But if this leads us to war, and he's listening to his inner circle say, beating the war drum, saying we need to be in there and we need to do regime change in Iran, well, that's certainly not something that is in this country's best interest regardless. And it actually, in my humble opinion, talking to security people, means that we need, where we really need to harden our national security is along that southern border, because we know Hezbollah operates south of that border. So this action actually should preclude Congress to get on board and start making sure that that southern border is locked down so we don't get a hit on the homeland, because that's where they're going to be coming from. We need to have strict visa requirements coming through. We elevated our national security warning this last week. We need to make sure that the American people are safe and that they are secure and they're vigilant about everything that's going on. So I think the concern with national security in the homeland, most likely, some of these terrorist cell groups that have embedded themselves inside the U.S. And certainly, they are working with cartels to get across the southern border again. So, that's where we need to focus on. And maybe this will refocus us on that southern border, because we really need to stop worrying about the borders in the Middle East. And we need to worry about ours. And, like I said, whether the action of this was the right thing to do or not, that is all yet to be told. But Congress is unwilling to revisit the Patriot Act. They are unwilling to revisit the AUMF. They don't want to go in and touch the War Powers Act, which they're talking about, bringing back the president. Well, the War Powers Act, ACT Act, means that it has to go through the House and get passed, has to go to the Senate and be passed, and has to be signed by the president. I'm fairly certain President Trump's not going to sign a document limiting his presidential power when it comes to war. So, all of the stuff that you're seeing on mainstream media today, over the weekend, is just that. It's talk and it's cheap until they go in and do something with the Patriot Act and move to rein in the executive power that both parties have just wantonly, they've just given the executive branch, because they do not want to make a decision, and they are just chickens and cowards for not going in and taking the law that was implemented right after 9/11 and voiding it out and starting all over for the current war that we're fighting against terrorism. They are cowards, and then people on TV talking about it any other way is absolutely ludicrous, because Congress has the power to write the laws. The president has to sign it into law, and he's not going to sign something that's going to limit his presidential War Power Act. And it's a fact. No president would do it. Obama wouldn't do it. No, Bush, none of these people would have done it. So, hopefully the American people are smarter than, these people that are inside the Beltway, because, right now, we really need to kind of stand our ground and hopefully continue to push the president to pull us out of these endless wars and stop spending the money over in the Middle East and actually start spending it in this country to help our economy grow, which is already growing, but help us on that southern border, because that's where the money needs to go.
And speaking of the Patriot Act or Powers Act,
yeah.
He did notify them in the 48 hours that is required. And, 48 hours, for those of you, that didn't take Common Core in school, 48 hours is like 2 days. Yeah. I mean, that gives Schiff plenty of time, or some other Congress people, or even Congress females, time to, send a tweet.
Yeah.
I got to ask you when we come back here, A.O. Cortez is talking about you're targeting cultural sites, and that doesn't make you a tough guy. I got to find out. I don't know what cultural sites that Trump is bombing, but maybe you have the answer. What's he talking about?
Well, again, this is, someone who's very young, clearly doesn't know a lot of history. Certainly doesn't really know what geography is, and doesn't know much about the Middle East in particular. Look, the president's not going to go bomb their grand mosques, but we know that terrorists, and we know that a lot of these people, they will hide in mosques or cultural centers or hospitals or schools, to protect themselves, because they're cowards as well. So, I have no idea what she's trying to do. I really don't get what she's trying to do. What we need to focus on here going forward is that we need to make sure that the U.S. has back channels of communications open. This is where the NSA director, the National Security Advisor, he needs to be, I'm hoping that they're talking back and forth with Iran so we can kind of curtail the escalation of the situation here. And, we can look back, the reason this is important is we look back at Kennedy, and he went to Eisenhower, and when we had the Cuban Missile Crisis going on, they were working back channels with Russia, and we averted a war, which could have been a very deadly war. So these back channels are really important. And right now the president has such a narrow group of people surrounding him that it's hard to trust anybody. He doesn't know if the intel community is providing good information or not. They certainly kind of, fudged a bit on the yellow cake when Bush was in office. And we've seen in the past that, some of their information has not necessarily panned out. So those are questions the American people can ask. Those are questions Congress can ask. And then also the other elephant in the room, if you will, is China. China depends on Iranian energy, full stop. So they are a huge player in this, and they're worried about there's going to be any oil embargoes, because that will affect China and their citizens. And so when you put all of these people together, you put all of these pieces of the puzzle in place, you see that it's a very complex puzzle. But again, you have to look to see who benefits the most with this. And obviously, the Sunnis, but more importantly, Turkey actually is going to benefit the most from this action, because we're wiping out their enemy, the Shias. And it's ultimately going to come down to what it always comes down to. This is going to be a Shia versus Sunni war, and that the two participants most likely in the end are not going to be Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and those people, but it's going to be Turkey versus Iran. That's where this is all headed, and the United States should just step away, slow down, and let them go about their business, and come back and actually worry about protecting our homeland. Both borders, south and north. Make sure that our visa system is in place, so we can make sure that we're filtering out possible terrorists from entering into our country. Those are things that we should be looking at instead of escalating the situation in the Middle East. And the media and the left and the never-Trumpers would like nothing more to embroil this president into another never-ending, endless war that will cost him what he wants most right now, and that's to be reelected. So those are the main issues that we need to worry about.
Thank you, Kimberly. Excellent report. Kimberly Dvorak, D-V-O-R-A-K. You can find her at thekdreport.com and facebook.com. Appreciate it. Look forward to our next visit.